All right, everybody. This is going to be a tutorial that kind of focuses on long-term roster planning, things you need to do to try to maintain success or your dynasty over an extended period of time. I get questions a lot, and I've tried to make a couple videos about kind of, what players should you keep, when should you trade players, etc. And because it's kind of impossible to answer it specifically about each team because it depends on your budget, your future contracts, are you trying to win or are you rebuilding? Like, it's just so situational. It really depends on so much. It's hard to give blanket answers, but I'm going to go through my team here with a few examples of kind of how I'm thinking about things as I'm entering the off season here. And hopefully that'll be helpful to you in terms of like when to think about trading players. Do you want to sign a guy long term, or do you just want to kind of give him 1 year deals through arbitration and then see how it goes? So one little tab here, I'm on the front office tab where you can customize with the drop down menu, see like what ones you have visible to you. One that I find helpful here is the future salaries one. And that kind of helps me see how my costs are going to escalate or de-escalate over the next, this is the current season. 2032 just ended, but it's still the current season because I haven't advanced to the next season yet. And then the next 2 seasons after that. And what it's going to tell you, it's going to tell you how much money you have guaranteed, which you can see I have very little guaranteed money, but then auto renew contracts, which I have a ton next season. And then it goes way down because, as you can see, I have only 3 guys entering arbitration this season, this off season, because I've signed most of them to 1 year or long-term deals. But next season, a lot of auto renew guys or guys I signed to 1 year arbitration contracts are going to be up for arbitration again. So I've got 17 players due for arbitration in 2034. And what this means to my bottom line is my max, you can look at total or max, whichever you prefer. Total is probably fine to not include the bonuses, but my payroll this year is 152, and in 2 years it's gonna be 141. And you're thinking like, oh, cool, I'm gonna have even more money to spend. But this doesn't account for the fact that all these arbitration guys are going to be escalating each year into the future. You can see I have a really good amount of money because I just had like 3 players opt out of their last year of their deal. So I have a ton of money. But at the same time, you still want to plan long term, just because my going down by 11 million here in 2 years, what that actually means is that my costs are going to be escalating of the players on my roster. Because as you can see, it might be going down 11 million, but I'm also losing my 1, 2, 3, 4 of my top 5 highest paid players. Here's another guy who's coming off the book soon. So you can really see the arbitration estimates are really going up over time. So I want to be careful not to overextend myself. And while yes, I have a ton of budget room, in the coming seasons, I might need a good chunk of that to, 1, replace guys who are falling off, their contracts are ending, and to also sign guys long term. So while I don't need this much flexibility, I still like to maintain some flexibility to replace guys or to sign star players to big long term deals. And that's why it's really helpful to have a good farm system, is because, as Patino, Corrales, these kind of guys fall off, you can hopefully have guys who are at least adequate replacements for making the minimum of the $564,000. So how do you go about doing that? Good question. It really just depends on so much, but I'm going to look at a few players. So here I've got a guy, Mike Angeletta. He's a second baseman. He made just $825,000 this year, but now his arbitration estimates have him making 4.8, 7.3, and 9.4 million. He's going to be a $10 million a year player in 3 years when I'm going to have a bunch of other guys in their first, second, and third year of arbitration. So take a look at Angeletta. I drafted him in the first round of 2023, and you can see here his rookie year he put up 2.7 WAR and was a little below average player, and then he was just kind of a bench player who was not very good for me for 2 years. I only kept him around because of his glove. And then this year he was forced into not full-time starting duty, but he got 108 starts, but he put up 3 WAR and a 107 WRC plus. That's a dude who I'd keep around, right? If he can be above average with the bat and be this good of a fielder at second and short especially, that's a pretty valuable player. But the question is at this point, like, which player is he, right? So that's why I'm just going to go the 1 year extension route on him through arbitration. Now I am going to try to sign him before he goes to arbitration. Your fans like that more if it's a popular player. It's better for the player morale, and you get more cost certainty rather than possibly losing an arbitration case. So I have an offer out to him, I think for 4.8. that he's considering. But I'm not going to sign him to like a 5 to 6 year deal at this point because I'm not sure which player he is, and I'm not sure he's a $10 million player. But I'm sure that he's worth 4.8 this year. Like based off of his season last season, that's cool. We can work with that. And if his costs continue to escalate and he's just kind of like an average player but starting to make more and more money, that's when I start to look like, one, can I replace him at free agency for somebody cheaper? Or two, do I have somebody in the farm system who can come up in the league minimum and basically save me all but $564,000 of his salary and, trade Angeletta? Or if his value's really tanked, you can just cut him, right? And you're off the hook for that salary the next year because arbitration is not guaranteed. Like this guy, Miguel Soto, was a guy that I signed to a 1-year deal while he's in arbitration for $1.1 million. But he really fell off a cliff and was in the minor leagues for me all year. So I'm going to cut him, and I'm not going to have to pay this $1.3 million that's going to come off the books. So arbitration and auto-renew contracts are not guaranteed for the next year. Contracts are only guaranteed once you sign an extension. So that's why it's nice with Angeletta. All right, like let's see how this plays out over the next 2 to 3 years. He's 27. He'll be 30 when this arbitration is over. And do I even want him around at that point? Or am I just kind of fine going 1-year deal at a time? I'm fine going 1-year deal here at a time. And another guy who that's similar to is, here's my third baseman, where is he? Sal Stewart. He's going to be an auto-renew, and then he's projected to make $6, $9.3, and $12.1 million in his last year of arbitration. That's a lot of money for a guy who hasn't even hit the open market yet. Sorry. But if you look at him, looked like he was a total stud for first 2 years, 2030 and then 2031. He split between two years. He came up late. He was kind of older when he came up. But then this year, he only put up 2.3 WAR in 132 games at 103 WRC plus. So I'm a little uncertain about him. I'm not sure. Like, is he going to be that all-star player he was the first 2 years, or just kind of like a league average guy who I can probably replace for cheaper at some point? So for Sal Stewart, he's got another year of auto renewal. We'll see what he does. And then he's got a few years of arbitration. He's also already 28. So that's another guy that I'm not looking to sign long-term at this point because of, one, his age, two, his up and down production that might be replaceable for way cheaper than this. Or maybe not totally replaceable, but I can get somebody who's adequate for much, much cheaper and then use those savings to keep star players. And by star players, let's talk about this guy, Julio Concepcion. He's got 2 more years of auto renewal, and then he's projected for 4 years of arbitration to max out at 12.5. But this is a guy that I will probably look to sign before that. As you can see here, he came up through my system. He was the number 8 prospect in baseball this year when he came up. He's just 24, and you can see major leagues. He came up late, a little later in the year for me, and then I had a really solid outfield, so it took him a little while to steal the starting job. But 113 starts, put up 5.2 WAR, 158 WRC plus. If he does this for another season or two, like I'm all in on a guy like this. I am going to commit long-term money to him. And just like I did this guy, like Mario Armendariz here is a guy I committed long-term money to because he came up 6 WAR, 6.1, and 9 WAR. Like there's no question at this point he's one of the best players in the league. He's about to win his 2nd straight MVP award. So this is not a replaceable player in the way that Angeletta or Stewart possibly could be replaced by somebody much, much cheaper who could give you similar production. One other thing, I would really hesitate to extend pitchers long-term. You can see here's Ben Schilt. Now, this is an exaggerated example because he was college drafted and then took a while to come up in my system, but he's 29 now. He's going to make $8.8 million, and he's got 2 more years of arbitration. So I've got him under team control until he's 31 or 32. For pitchers, not really interested in having him sign for much longer. So I'm not going to sign him to a long-term deal, even though he won the Cy Young for me last year. Because once he's 32, I'm going to be pretty hesitant to want him on the books. And also, what this does is, with this $8.8 million, being arbitration and not guaranteed, if he has an arm injury here this year and he totally falls off a cliff, I'm not locked into paying him $13.1 or $15.8 million. That's why I'm not extending him. Now, the risk I run is his arbitration estimates could go higher. So if I signed him to a deal, I'd have cost certainty, but just not worth that risk to me. So I'm just going to let him play it out 1 year at a time, and I'm going to pay him more money than I would have, but I'm going to be able to mitigate the risk of him getting injured. So those are just some things to look at if you're looking to build a long-term dynasty, is which players do you want to lock up long-term, and really be wary of signing up guys who are just kind of like league average or a little above league average to like $10 million deals, because you want to be able to sign like Armendariz and afford to pay him 20 to 25 million a year, and you're going to have more flexibility to do that if you have cheaper players all around your roster. So I'm very much of like build around your superstars and figure out the rest. Let me know if any questions on that one. Hopefully that helps answer some questions about how to kind of sustain a long-term winner of just building around your stars.